Josephine almost missed her flight because she stopped to buy an extra suitcase for shoes she didn't even own yet. Now picture this, 24 hours later, she's standing in the middle of Myeongdong at midnight, mascara running down her face, staring at a boy she just watched pull a gun out of his jacket like it was a phone. That boy used to sell her socks, actual socks. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how a sock salesman became the most dangerous man in Seoul, and why Josephine married him anyway. If you love a good cry, a good laugh, and a love story that could get somebody killed, smash that like button. Subscribe before you go anywhere, and let's get into it. Josephine Tell grew up in Brooklyn, with a mother who worked 2 jobs and a grandmother who prayed over every pot of rice she cooked. She wasn't the type of girl who dreamed about Korea. She barely knew where Korea was on a map until her college offered a semester abroad program in Seoul, and her roommate begged her to sign up so she wouldn't have to go alone. Josephine said yes for the free credits. She had no idea her whole life was about to flip upside down over a pair of socks. The first week in Seoul was rough. She got lost twice trying to find her dorm. She ordered something at a restaurant thinking it was chicken, and it turned out to be something with tentacles that looked back at her. She cried in a bathroom stall on day 3, not because anything terrible happened, just because everything felt too loud and too new and nobody looked like her. Her mother called that night and said something Josephine never forgot. She said, "Baby, brave don't mean you not scared. Brave mean you scared and you still get up." Josephine wiped her face, put on real clothes, and went outside to find a market everyone kept talking about. That's where she met him. He was standing behind a little stall, stacked with folded socks in every color, shouting something in Korean that made 3 older women laugh so hard, one of them slapped his arm. When he saw Josephine standing there confused, he switched to English so smooth it was like he'd been waiting for her his whole life. "You look lost, or you just really don't like socks." Josephine crossed her arms. "I like socks fine. I just don't know why a grown man is yelling about them like it's a concert." "Because these are not just socks." He held one up like he was presenting a diamond. "These are happiness for your feet. Sad feet make sad person. You want to be sad person? I want to go home. Then buy socks first. Walking home in bad socks, that's the real tragedy." Josephine tried to keep a straight face and failed. She bought 2 pairs she didn't need just so she could stop laughing in public. His name, he told her, was Yoon Tae-hyun, and he worked that stall 5 days a week for his uncle. He had a gap in his smile that showed up right before he said something ridiculous, and Josephine found herself walking past that stall every single day after that, whether she needed socks or not. Weeks turned into a routine. Tae-hyun taught her small Korean phrases in exchange for slang from Brooklyn, most of which he used incorrectly on purpose just to make her laugh. He'd greet her with things like, "What's poppin', my shorty?" with a straight face until she doubled over. She taught him to say, "no cap," and he used it after every single sentence for a full week until she begged him to stop. One evening, after the market closed, he walked her back toward her dorm. The streets were lit up gold, and there was a street musician playing something soft on a guitar. Taehyun stopped walking and looked at her the way nobody had ever looked at her before, like she was the only thing worth looking at in the whole city. "Can I tell you something, and you don't laugh?" "I make no promises. I think about you when you're not at the market. That's not normal for a boy who sells socks." Josephine's heart did something embarrassing. Maybe it's normal for a boy who's actually kind of sweet under all that noise. Sweet like the socks? Don't ruin the moment, Taehyun. He laughed, and then he got quiet, and then he kissed her, right there under the gold lights, soft and careful like he was asking a question with his lips instead of his words. Josephine kissed him back before her brain could tell her body to slow down. When they pulled apart, neither one of them said anything for a second. Then Taehyun grinned that gap-toothed grin. "Okay, sweet like the socks." Josephine shoved him, and he laughed the whole walk home. For the next month, life felt like a movie Josephine didn't want to end. She'd finish class and run to the market. Taehyun would sneak her free samples from the food stalls next door and steal kisses when his uncle wasn't looking. They had inside jokes. They had a song. Josephine started dreaming in half Korean. She had never felt this warm, this seen, this wanted. Her friends back home teased her over video call, saying she sounded like a whole different person, lighter, softer. Josephine didn't argue. She was different. She was happy. Then one night, everything cracked open. Josephine had stayed late at the library and decided to walk the long way past the market, hoping to catch Taehyun before he packed up. Instead, she saw him standing in an alley beside three men in black suits, and one of those men was pointing something at another man's face. Taehyun's voice was different, sharp, commanding, not the goofy sock boy voice at all. I said leave him alone. He paid what he owed. We're done here. The man with the gun hesitated, then lowered it and backed away like Taehyun's word was law. Josephine's whole body went cold. She backed up so fast she knocked over a trash can, and Taehyun's head snapped toward the sound. Their eyes met across the alley. For one terrible second, neither of them moved. Josephine! She was already running. He caught up to her 2 blocks later, breathing hard, hands up like she was a spooked animal. Let me explain. Please, just 5 minutes. You had a gun pointed near somebody's face and you were talking like you run this whole street. Because I do, sort of. It's complicated. Uncomplicated. Now. Taehyun rubbed the back of his neck, and for the first time since she'd met him, he looked scared, not of the men in the alley, scared of her walking away. My father is Yoon Sang-chul, Josephine blinked. Am I supposed to know who that is? If you knew, you would already be running faster than this. He took a breath. My father runs one of the biggest organizations in Seoul. Not the legal kind. I've been in training since I was 14 to take over one day. The stall, the socks. That was supposed to be a simple assignment, watch a location, blend in. I didn't plan on falling for the woman who kept buying socks she clearly did not need. Josephine felt like the ground had opened under her. So this whole time, you were what, working? I was part of a job? No, the job ended the first week. Everything after that was just me, wanting to see you. His voice cracked slightly. I should have told you sooner. I was scared that the moment you knew, you'd disappear. Josephine wanted to scream and cry and laugh all at once, because leave it to her to fall for the one sock salesman in Seoul who was secretly a Mafia heir in training. This is insane. This is actually insane, Taehyun. I know. I'm supposed to go home in 4 months. I know that too. He stepped closer, careful, like he was approaching something fragile. But I have never once lied about how I feel about you. Everything else, yes, I hid. This, never. Josephine didn't answer him that night. She went home and didn't sleep, replaying every soft moment against the image of him standing over another man, with that voice she didn't recognize. By morning, she still didn't have an answer, but she noticed something that scared her more than the gun did. She missed him. Even after everything, she missed him. She avoided the market for a full week. Taehyun didn't chase her, didn't blow up her phone, just sent one message every night that said the same 4 words. Whenever you're ready. On the 8th night, Josephine showed up at the stall in the rain, soaked through, arms crossed. I have questions. Taehyun immediately grabbed his jacket and put it over her shoulders without asking. Ask everything. Do you kill people? No, I've never taken a life and I don't intend to. Are you going to keep doing that? The gang thing? It's not something I can walk away from easily. My father has one son, me, but I promise you this, whatever I do, I keep it away from you. You will never be in danger because of who I am. Josephine studied his face for a long time. The rain kept falling. If I stay in this, and I'm not saying I'm staying, but if I do, you don't get to hide things from me again? Not the big things. Never again. He held out his pinky finger like a child, which broke the tension just enough for Josephine to laugh through her worry. Are we really pinky promising about organized crime? When in Korea, she linked her pinky with his, and that was the moment Josephine Tell chose him. Dangerous secrets and all. What she didn't know yet was that choosing him would mean going to war with 2 families who both wanted her gone. The first sign of trouble came 3 weeks later, when Taehyun asked her to meet his father for the first time. Josephine spent 2 hours picking an outfit that said respectful but not scared, though she felt plenty scared. Yoon Sang-chul's house looked less like a home and more like a fortress. Marble floors, security at every door, silence so thick you could hear your own heartbeat. Taehyun's father sat at the head of a long table, sharp suit, sharper eyes, studying Josephine like she was a problem to be solved rather than a person to be met. So this is the American girl. Josephine, sir. It's an honor to meet you. Is it? He didn't smile. My son has spent his entire life being trained for something bigger than sock stalls and puppy love. I did not raise him to fall for a foreigner with no name, no connections, and no understanding of what our world requires. Taehyun's jaw tightened. Father, I am speaking to her. His eyes never left Josephine. Tell me, Miss Tell, what do you know about loyalty, sacrifice, danger? What do you bring to this family besides complications? Josephine's hands were shaking under the table, but her voice came out steady. I don't know your world, sir. You're right about that. But I know love, and I know your son loves me the same way I love him, without conditions. If that's a complication to you, I understand. But I'm not going anywhere just because I'm inconvenient. Silence stretched so long, Josephine thought she might pass out. Then Sang-chul stood, buttoned his jacket, and walked out without another word. Taehyun exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for an hour. That went either really badly or really well. I genuinely cannot tell. Please tell me nobody's about to jump me in the parking lot. Not today. Probably. Taehyun. I'm joking. Mostly. Josephine laughed despite herself because that was the thing about him. Even in the scariest rooms, he found a way to make her breathe again. Things at home weren't easier. When Josephine finally told her mother over video call that she was seriously involved with someone and eventually admitted what his family did, her mother nearly dropped the phone. Josephine Michelle Tell, please tell me you did not fall in love with the Korean version of a Scarface movie. Mama, it's not like that exactly. Exactly like what part is different? The suits? The guns? The daddy with the death stare you just described to me? He's different from his family, Mama. He's kind. He's funny. He makes me feel safe. Her mother went quiet for a moment, and when she spoke again, her voice softened, worried instead of angry. Baby, I didn't raise you to run from danger, but I also didn't raise you to run straight into it blindfolded. You be careful. You hear me? You keep your eyes open. I will, Mama. I promise. Josephine hung up, feeling the weight of two families now standing between her and the boy she loved, one accusing her of being beneath him, the other terrified she was in over her head. Both of them in their own way were right to worry. The real danger showed up on a Tuesday, ordinary as any other day, which is exactly why nobody saw it coming. Josephine was walking from the subway toward the market when a black car slowed beside her. The window rolled down, and a man she'd never seen before smiled at her in a way that made every hair on her arms stand up. You're the American girl seeing Yoon Tae-hyun. Excuse me? Careful who you love, sweetheart. His father has enemies. Enemies who know exactly who matters to the heir. The window rolled back up, and the car disappeared into traffic before Josephine could even process what happened. She ran the rest of the way to the market, chest heaving, and told Taehyun everything through broken breaths. His face went pale, then hard, then furious, an expression she'd never seen on him before. Describe the car, now. Black tinted windows. I don't know cars, Taehyun. I was scared. He pulled out his phone and made a call in rapid Korean, voice low and clipped, nothing like the boy who joked about happy feet. When he hung up, he grabbed both her hands. You cannot walk alone anymore, not until this is settled. Settled how? Taehyun, that man knew my name. I know, and I am going to fix this, even if it means going to my father for help I swore I'd never ask for. That night, for the first time, Taehyun went to his father not as a son being lectured, but as a man asking for protection for the woman he loved. Sang-chul listened in silence, arms crossed, and when Taehyun finished speaking, he asked one question. You would risk everything, the training, the succession, all of it for her? I already have, Father. The only thing left is whether you help me protect her or whether I do it alone and prove I don't need this family at all. Something shifted in Sang-chul's eyes, something that looked almost like respect. Bring her back here tomorrow, and this time I will actually talk to her instead of testing her. The next visit felt entirely different. Sang-chul poured tea himself, which Taehyun later told her was something he never did for guests. He asked Josephine about her mother, about Brooklyn, about what she wanted to do with her life beyond this semester abroad. It wasn't warm exactly, but it wasn't cold either. Near the end, he set his cup down. There is a rival family, the Baek organization, that has wanted to weaken us for years. They discovered my son cares for someone outside our world, and to them, that is a wound they can press on. I will handle the threat against you. But understand, Miss Tell, once I extend my protection to you, you are no longer simply my son's girlfriend. You become a target with my name attached to you. Are you prepared for that? Josephine thought about her mother's words. Brave, don't mean you're not scared. She looked Sang-chul dead in the eye. I've been scared since the day that car rolled up beside me, but I'm choosing to stay scared and still show up. If that's what it takes to keep loving your son, then yes, I'm prepared. For the first time since she'd met him, Sang-chul almost smiled. Good, because I don't tolerate cowards in this family. Josephine nearly fell out of her chair. Did he just say family? Life got tense after that. Security shadowed Josephine everywhere, quiet men in dark clothes who blended into crowds so well, she'd forget they were there until she needed them. Taehyun trained harder, disappeared for stretches she wasn't allowed to ask about, came back with bruises he brushed off with jokes that didn't quite land the way his old jokes used to. One night, he showed up at her dorm, soaking wet, knuckles split, jaw tight. What happened to you? Negotiation that got a little physical. A little? Okay, a lot physical. But you should see the other guy. Taehyun, this isn't funny. He softened instantly, sat beside her, took her hand gently despite his busted knuckles. I'm sorry. Humor is how I survive this life without losing myself in it. If I stop laughing, I start becoming my father, and I don't want that. I want to still be the guy who sold you socks you didn't need. Josephine kissed his split knuckles one by one, careful and slow. Then keep being him. I fell for that guy. Not the suits, not the danger. Him. Even if that guy comes with a target on his back? Even then. They sat in silence for a while, her head on his shoulder, his heartbeat steady under her ear, despite everything chasing them. It was one of those quiet moments that meant more than any grand gesture could. Two people simply choosing each other in the middle of chaos. The Bayek family escalated faster than anyone expected. 2 weeks later, Josephine was grabbed off the street in broad daylight, bag ripped from her shoulder, shoved into a car before her scream even finished leaving her throat. She fought, clawed, kicked, everything her mother ever taught her about not being an easy target. But there were 3 of them and 1 of her. She woke up in a cold room with her wrists bound, head pounding, and the man from the black car standing over her with that same unsettling smile. Yoon Sang-chul's precious foreign girl. Let's see how much his empire is really worth to him. Josephine's voice shook, but she refused to let it break completely. You picked the wrong girl to scare. I'm from Brooklyn. We don't do quiet crying over here. The man laughed, unimpressed. Bold? Won't matter when your boyfriend arrives to find you in pieces. Meanwhile, Taehyun had gone from calm to something Josephine had never witnessed, a controlled, terrifying focus that made even his father's men move faster around him. He tracked the signal from her phone before it went dark, cross-referenced it with known Beck properties, and within 2 hours had assembled a small, precise team. No wasted movement, no wasted words. If anyone touches her, he said to his father, voice flat and cold, I don't care about succession. I don't care about the family name. I will end this myself. Sang-chul for once didn't argue. He simply nodded and said 4 words. Then let's go get her. The rescue happened fast and messy, a blur of shouting and slamming doors and Josephine screaming Taehyun's name the second she heard his voice through the wall. When he finally broke through, bruised and bleeding from his knuckles again, he dropped to his knees in front of her chair and cut the ropes with shaking hands. I'm here. I've got you. Josephine collapsed into him, sobbing, adrenaline finally letting go now that she was safe. You came. I will always come. Every single time. For the rest of my life. Outside, his father's men handled the Beck soldiers with brutal efficiency. And by morning, word spread through Seoul's underworld that touching Yoon Sang-chul's family, which now, unspoken but understood, included Josephine, was the fastest way to disappear. The days after the kidnapping were quiet in a heavy way. Josephine had nightmares. Taehyun barely slept, staying awake in the chair beside her bed some nights just to make sure she felt safe enough to close her eyes. Her mother flew to Seoul the moment she heard, marching into the hospital room with a fury that could level buildings, only to soften the instant she saw her daughter's face. I told you to keep your eyes open, not get snatched off a street like a stray cat. Mama, I'm okay. You are not okay. You are traumatized, and I am about to traumatize somebody myself. Her eyes cut toward Taehyun, who stood awkwardly by the window. This the boy? Yes, ma'am. Taehyun straightened up like he was facing his own father. Yoon Taehyun, I know I have a lot to answer for. Josephine's mother studied him the exact same way Sang-chul had studied Josephine weeks earlier, sharp, unblinking, searching for weakness. You let my daughter get kidnapped because of your family business. Yes, ma'am, and I will spend the rest of my life making sure it never happens again. I love your daughter more than I've ever loved anything. That includes the empire I'm supposed to inherit. Something about his voice, steady despite the exhaustion and bruises, made Josephine's mother pause. She looked at Josephine, who nodded slightly, silently begging her mother to see what she saw. Finally, her mother sighed the long, tired sigh of a woman who'd raised a daughter with too much heart to talk her out of anything. Well, guess we're doing this then. She pointed a finger at Taehyun. But if she comes home with one more bruise that ain't from falling down some stairs, I don't care whose son you are, I will fly back here myself. Understood, ma'am. Completely understood. Josephine laughed for the first time in days, and it felt like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Recovery took time, but love, stubborn, and patient filled the gaps. Sang-chul, in his own distant way, checked on Josephine more than she expected, sending his men to walk her to class, once even showing up himself with a small gift, a jade bracelet that had belonged to Taehyun's late mother. She would have liked you, he said simply, setting the box on the table before walking away without waiting for a thank you. Josephine held that bracelet like it was the most precious thing she owned, because in a way, it was proof that even the coldest fortress could grow something warm inside it. Months passed. Josephine's semester abroad ended, but she didn't go home, not permanently, choosing instead to finish her degree online while staying in Seoul. Her mother worried less over time, especially after Taehyun called every single week just to check on her. Sometimes just to make her laugh with terrible Brooklyn slang he still insisted on using wrong on purpose. The comedy never left them, even in the heaviness. One evening, cooking together in Taehyun's apartment, Josephine burned an entire pot of rice trying to prove she could cook Korean food without help. It's supposed to be black? Taehyun, don't. I'm just asking, is this a Brooklyn style of burnt or I will burn you next? Feisty, I like it. Very Mafia wife energy. Do not call me a Mafia wife. We are not even engaged. He went suspiciously quiet at that, stirring a pot that didn't need stirring, and Josephine narrowed her eyes. Taehyun? Yes? Why do you look like you just swallowed a secret? I don't know what you're talking about. This rice needs attention. He turned away to hide the smile, threatening to break his whole face open, and Josephine let it go, though something in her chest fluttered with hope she didn't dare name yet. 2 weeks later, Taehyun took her to the same street where they'd shared their first kiss. Gold lights strung overhead just like that night, the same street musician playing softly nearby. Though Josephine suspected that part wasn't a coincidence, he stopped walking, turned to face her, and for once in his life, didn't crack a single joke. I sold you socks you didn't need because I wanted an excuse to see your face every single day. I never expected that excuse to become the reason I wake up wanting to be a better man. You stayed through threats, through my father, through your own mother's fear, through a kidnapping that should have sent you running back to Brooklyn forever. Instead, you stayed, so now I'm asking you to stay forever, officially, if you'll have a Mafia heir with terrible jokes and a family that comes with more baggage than an airport. He dropped to one knee, pulling out a ring simple enough to make Josephine's breath catch, elegant instead of flashy, clearly chosen with her in mind rather than his family's wealth. Josephine, marry me. Josephine laughed through tears, hands shaking. You couldn't even ask normal. You had to make it a whole speech. Is that a yes? That's a yes, you ridiculous sock salesman. Yes. He slid the ring on with hands that trembled more than hers, and when he stood to kiss her, the whole street seemed to hold its breath around them, gold lights glowing like the city itself was celebrating. The wedding almost didn't happen smoothly, because of course it didn't, not for these two. Planning a wedding between a Brooklyn family and a Korean crime family came with more comedy than either family expected. Josephine's mother insisted on a Seoul food table beside the traditional Korean spread, declaring, if I'm flying across the world for a wedding, somebody better have some mac and cheese. Sang-chul, stiff and unreadable as ever, actually tried the mac and cheese at the rehearsal dinner and nodded once in approval, which Josephine's mother took as the highest honor of her life. Did the mafia boss just co-sign my cooking? Mama, don't call him that to his face. Baby, I called Taehyun's daddy exactly what he is and he liked my noodles. We understand each other now. The morning of the wedding, Josephine stood in front of a mirror in a dress that blended both worlds. Delicate Korean embroidery along a silhouette that felt distinctly her own. Jade bracelet from Taehyun's late mother resting beside a bracelet from her grandmother back in Brooklyn. Her mother fixed her veil with shaking hands. You remember when you called me crying because you couldn't find your dorm? Mama, don't start. I'm just saying, look at you now, brave the whole way. Josephine hugged her tight, careful not to wrinkle either of their outfits. Brave don't mean not scared. That's my girl. The ceremony blended traditions in a way that made both families laugh and cry in equal measure. Taehyun, standing at the altar in a suit sharper than any he'd worn selling socks, couldn't stop grinning that gap-toothed grin the entire time, especially when Josephine walked toward him, glowing, unshaken by everything they'd survived to reach this moment. When it came time for vows, Taehyun cleared his throat, feigning seriousness. Josephine, I promise to always keep excellent socks in our household. I promise to protect you with everything I have, including questionable knife skills in the kitchen. And I promise that no matter what danger finds us, love finds us first, every single time. Josephine laughed through happy tears. Yoon Taehyun, I promise to never let you live down the sock stall as long as we live. I promise to hold you down through every storm your family brings, and every storm mine brings too. And I promise that wherever Brave takes us next, I'll be right there beside you, scared and showing up anyway. Sang Chul, seated in the front row, dabbed his eyes with a handkerchief so subtly, he probably thought no one noticed, though Josephine's mother absolutely noticed and elbowed her the entire reception about it. As the sun set over Seoul that evening, string lights glowing gold just like that very first night they kissed, Josephine danced in the arms of the boy who once sold her socks she never needed. Now the man who'd risked an empire for her, survived a kidnapping to save her, and stood in front of two very different worlds to promise her forever. Somewhere far away, Brooklyn celebrated a daughter who found love in the last place anyone expected. And somewhere in Seoul, a market stall still stood empty that night, closed for the first time in years, because its owner had finally sold the only thing that ever truly mattered, his whole heart, to a girl who almost walked past him without buying a single sock. If this story had you laughing, crying, and holding your breath all at once, that's exactly what Afro Korean romance is all about. And there's so much more where this came from. Drop a comment telling me which part hit you hardest, whether it was the sock stall, the kidnapping, or that proposal under the gold lights. Hit like if you're rooting for Josephine and Taehyun, subscribe so you never miss the next love story, and turn on notifications because trust me, you do not want to miss what's coming next.